environment. Jason, let's toss it to you now. Let's focus on the Rays on the field, because later in the show we got plenty to talk about off the field. But the Rays quietly had a nice, very good week. They've taken the first 2 games from Houston. You saw them up in Milwaukee. They took 2 out of 3 against a very good Milwaukee Brewers team. A very successful week so far for the Rays on this road trip.
Yeah, I mean, if let's jump back 20 games, the Rays are 14-6 in their last 20. They dropped 2 or 3 in the Boston series. They've dropped 1 game here or there, but go to Milwaukee was no easy task. That team was playing .735 baseball at home, 25-9 before the Rays got there, best in the league by far. And the Rays took 2 of 3 rather easily up there. And now with Houston, it's rather a nice gift on the schedule. Houston's a very, very bad baseball team. There's no way if the Rays now they took 2 or 3, this is a minimum what they had to do. They need to sweep this series because Houston. Watching the game over the last 2 nights, I think I was watching like a tryout for Major League 4. I didn't know who these guys were. They had 3 pitchers with the last name Rodriguez, and Wandy was the only one I knew. They had 2 other guys I'd never heard of before.
Come on, Hunter Pence.
Well, I'm talking about pitching. Hunter Pence is the only guy worth watching on that team because the rest, Carlos Lee, El Caballo needs to be taken to the glue factory. That guy's awful. But it is the Astros are just bad. And that's a top-down. That's Drayton McClain being too involved. That's Ed Wade being too inept and being a yes man. They need a real the owner, Jim Crane's going to come in there. They need to find themselves a real GM that's going to run that team as it should be. It's an embarrassment. Those are my 2 favorite teams. I grew up in Houston, so the Astros are my childhood team. I'm here in Florida. The Rays are my team. So I get very, upset when I see my childhood team get run into the ground.
I sense that. Jeff Neiman goes today. Give me your thoughts. He came back Monday, pitched pretty well against Milwaukee, got the win. He pitches today. Can he return to that form about a year ago around this time when people thought he was arguably the second-best pitcher in that staff and a borderline all-star, and then he got injured and it was never the same. What do you expect from Jeff Neiman?
Last Monday he caught a huge break when Ryan Braun was pulled from the lineup just before the game with a viral infection. And that really was key in that game because Mark Kotsay was playing. Mark Kotsay is about what you and I would be at the plate these days, and he came up twice, once with the bases loaded, once with 2 men on, and left all those guys stranded. Ryan Braun would not have done that. So Neiman caught a break because without Ryan Braun in that lineup, if you're a right-handed pitcher, the only guy you really have to fear is Prince Fielder. After that, the rest of that lineup can be handled. Neiman did a very good job. His curveball looked as good as I've seen it look in quite some time. And he kept it down, did not give up the long ball. Those are things that always plague him. So this Houston lineup is another soft landing for him. It helped him build up some confidence because we talked when I was back, last time I was here in studio 2 weeks ago, the Rays have that critical 11-game stretch right around the All-Star break. They play the Yankees 8 times right around the All-Star break, and the Red Sox 3. That's going to make or break their season. You saw Buster Olney yesterday tweet about the Rays are putting signals out that their market's open. Are they buying? Are they selling? That's going to be determined in that 11-game stretch where they're playing their 2 heated rivals.
To hit on one of your points, I hope they don't make Major League 4.
Major League 1 was so awesome. 2 and 3 not so good. But you look at the Astros. Last night the Astros had a pitcher in there, Fernando Abad. His last name is actually Abad, which pretty much describes their roster.
And this is watching the 2 games. There was nobody at the ballpark at Minute Maid there, from what I saw. It was not a.
Do you blame him?
Well, I'm just saying, maybe I was just wondering if Steve Berthiaume was watching. Maybe they should write something about maybe the Astros.
You want to talk about nobody at a ballpark? You should have seen some of the pictures from Dodger Stadium yesterday. Somebody tweeted one 15 minutes before the game, and it looked like a batting practice shot. Absolutely. There was just nobody there. But Houston, it's a great stadium. I love that stadium. If they could bring that to the Tampa Bay area, sign me up. It's a great place to watch a game. Unfortunately, it's not a great product on the field.
No, I've been to Minute Maid. It's beautiful. Let's look a week ahead here. Cincinnati and St. Louis come to town. That Cardinal series was looking big. Last week, of course, Albert Pujols is out. We'll be out for that series.
Nice break.
Nice break. We'll have somebody from St. Louis next week on the show to talk more about it. But the Reds, Joey Votto, talented team. I'll be there Wednesday. I'm looking forward. What do we expect from the Rays this week at home?
That's going to be a tough series. Joey Votto is playing some unreal baseball right now. Jay Bruce was coming off of playing some unreal baseball. Drew Stubbs is one of 3 guys in baseball that has at least 10 home runs and at least 20 stolen bases. So there's another athlete on the team. And the good news for the Rays is the 3 best guys are going into the series. Price, Hellickson, and Shields are all going to pitch in the series with the Reds. So it's going to be a very competitive series. And the Reds are just playing really good baseball. But you saw how when the Red Sox came to town, the Rays threw up their 3 best arms and held a red-hot Red Sox offense to 7 runs in 3 games. Unfortunately, the Rays only scored 6. The Rays are still having trouble scoring runs at home, and that's what's hurt them. They go on the road. hit like gangbusters. They come home and they just don't hit. So they're going to have to hit in this series, take advantage. I think Johnny Cueto is going to pitch in this series against the Rays, and Johnny Cueto's been pitching some unbelievable baseball now that he's got this new delivery that's a mix between Felix Hernandez and Hideo Nomo's delivery. But you saw him absolutely shut down a Yankees offense the other night.
Last question before we go to break. Will we see Desmond Jennings in this homestand? And speculation is, of course, all the service time. He's now eligible. If he bring him up now this week, it won't. They'll still be able to keep him. An extra year, which was their goal. Will they be up this week?
Yeah, we did some. D-Rays Bay is one of the places that we do writing, and some colleagues put together a service time clock, looking at what he did last year against this year, because you've already seen guys like Mike Moustakas, Eric Hosmer, Anthony Rizzo. Those guys called up around the league, but Desmond Jennings played last year, so you had to factor in that. And by our calculations, after today, he's eligible to be called up and would not fall into that Super 2. If you don't know what Super 2 is, what the league does is takes the top 17% of the people called up, and that gives them a year earlier into arbitration. So that kind of move could cost a team anywhere, $2 million a year early over the span of a contract, as much as $13 million over the time you control a player. So it behooves the Rays to not call Desmond Jennings up before that Super 2 floating deadline to control future cost.
Well, that'll be interesting. That's Jason Collette, ESPN 1080 The Team here with ESPN1080.com Insider Show. Eric Lopez here, your UCF and Magic Insider. Andrew Melnick, your Magic and NBA Insider. The man with fire in his eyes right now after hearing Steve Berthume just going off on the Rays attendance is, of course, none other than Jason Collette, your Rays and MLB Insider. And reminder, you can check all of our writings at ESPN1080.com. Andrew's had his mock draft last week. Did pretty well on it, right, Andrew?
Had I fixed it after all these trades went down, I might have done a little better.
You would have done a little better. And then, of course, Mikey, I have my article on Mikey Matuk, exclusive interview with him, and got quotes from his coaches about him. But let's get to that. Steve Berthume wrote an article, Jason, on ESPN.com about the Rays attendance, basically suggesting it's time for the Rays to go, that they're not drawing, they have a good team, and they just doesn't work in Tampa St. Pete. It caused a huge uproar in the Tampa St. Pete. He went on the radio stations, including ESPN 1040, which is where we got that clip from. Why don't you take us from there on that story?
Okay, my overall beef with it, there was no new facts in the story. Berthume, well researched. I know some of the people he talked to for the story, who again are very well researched. So this wasn't a off the collar, reactionary piece. My problem with it is it comes from ESPN and Berthume, who, if he's on Baseball Tonight, he can't resist making a crack about the Rays attendance when they're doing highlights. And again, the Rays, as we said earlier, the Rays are 14-6 in the last 20, and ESPN writes a story not about any of the players, but about attendance for the 1,358th time, and that's where it really hit a sore spot with the Bay Area. And in my response to it's time for to take the Rays out of this area, where are you going to take them to? Nobody has a new stadium. People mentioned Charlotte. They have to build one. They have their own economical problems. You mentioned Vegas. I don't know if baseball wants to get near that problem. Their economy is just as bad as Florida's. Their housing market's worse. You're not going to go to Portland. Portland just lost their AAA team because they couldn't support it. So it's a matter of, where are you going to take them? This is the best market. If you look at regionalizing the stadium, my suggestion is to get it in downtown Tampa. I have a whole proposal up on draysbay.com about it right now. Get it in central Tampa so it's a regional thing. If you combine this Tampa St. Pete TV market, which is 13th overall in the country, with the Orlando market, which is 19th overall in the country, that gives you one of the top 6 TV markets in all of the country. That's what needs to happen. Right now, the stadium is so far down. Orlando, it's an hour and a half if you're down at Disney to get out there. 2 hours if you're here where we're at the studio to get down there. People aren't going to the games. The Orlando Sentinel's not covering the team because the interest isn't there because it's too far away. Bring it back this way. Look at the interest here in the Bucks. People have no problem driving over to see a Bucks game. They don't have a problem driving over to see the Lightning play. They do have a problem driving over those bridges to go see the Rays play.
So you think location is the problem, where the stadium is at, the fact there's not really anything to do around there except for Fergs. The fact you move it to downtown Tampa, you think that solves the attendance? How much would it improve it by?
I'd say to improve the attendance, right now it's a good night if they get 20,000 fans that everybody wants to celebrate it. That should be the floor in a downtown. You look at some examples of other markets that have done this. San Diego moved from Jack Murphy Stadium to Petco Park. They built Petco Park in the East Village of San Diego, which was an awful part of San Diego. People didn't want to go there. You go to East Village now, Petco Park's there. You have a bunch of residential units, a bunch of restaurants. It is a revitalized area. Same thing happened in Denver when they built Coors Field and Lodo area. You know, they didn't have anything going on down there. They built Coors Field, residential stuff pops up, restaurants pop up, businesses pop up. You know, big economic boom. Same thing in Detroit when they built Comerica. Things happen. You can build around projects and generate interest in the area. Right now, as you said, Fergus is a great place to go hang out for a Rays game, but that's pretty much your only option on site. You've got to go inside the stadium. And, I mean, the stadium, the great thing, it's 72 degrees, which is warmer inside the studio this morning. But, you know, it's 72 degrees every time you're in Tropicana Field. That's a great thing. You don't have to deal with weather. The ballpark experience is 10 times better than it was under Vince Namoli's regime with it. So, you know, it's just getting to the ballpark. And there's a lot of people, I'll compare it to this. There are 950,000 residents in Pinellas County, where Tropicana Field is. There are 950,000 residents in all of Milwaukee. And look at the attendance in Milwaukee this week when the Rays were up there, 35 to 43,000 every single night of that series. The Rays have had one game all season that's matched that number.
The interesting thing I find with this, because everybody always picks on the Rays attendance, or a friend of mine, he might be a friend of yours, Mark Tompkin, always tweets it.
Yep.
My question is, and I don't know, do you have the attendance numbers in front of you as far as the rankings? Because I believe
last or next to last this year.
This this upcoming year, who is right barely ahead of the Rays in the American League? I believe it's Cleveland, right?
Well, Cleveland's actually, they were, but now they've had a bunch of sellouts or May, so it's bumped them up. But the Royals are there.
The Royals
and whatnot.
are there. It's not like the Rays are the only team. We mentioned earlier on the show, the Astros are not drawing. This is not just a one-team issue here. There's a lot of teams that are not drawing. Yet it seems like everybody else is protected from it. There's no mention of it. You mentioned the Dodgers. That's a disaster. I would say the Dodgers situation is a far worse situation right now than you have with the Rays.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's somebody tweeted a picture yesterday, 15 minutes before first pitch in Dodger Stadium between the Dodgers and Angels, a regional game, and it looked worse than some of the Rays games from 2004. You look at attendance right now, the Marlins are dead last, Rays are next to last, then it's the Royals, the A's, and then Cleveland. Those are your bottom five teams in attendance. But again, the only one that everybody wants to talk about is the Rays, and I know it's because, they've 2 of the last 3 seasons in the postseason, so automatically you should just show up to games and whatnot. But a lot of these national stories seem to ignore the local factor of it. The local factor is the local unemployment rate is still higher than the national average in Tampa Bay. That's going to be a problem. And you couple that with location. This year you also couple that with the fact that Tampa Bay Lightning made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, and several times the Rays and Lightning were playing home games at the same time. You're drawing from your fan bases. And you look at it, the Yankees and Red Sox have made one trip each to Tropicana Field so far. And those are traditionally, just because of the way the area is, those are the games that bring the fans in. So there's a lot of factors. I just think the timing of the story is awful because, again, nothing new. There's a lot of good things going on with the Rays as a ball club right now, and ESPN's bringing up the attendance issue again.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Cardinals and the Reds. I mean, that's going to draw more fans, obviously, than normal. 2 very popular teams. And you hit on a couple of points that I liked. I mean, just look what happened at Church Street. It had fallen apart. Look what's happened to that in the last year since the new arena got built here. And the other thing, you mentioned coming over from Orlando. When you're talking about 7 o'clock starts, or I guess 6:40 starts when you're talking about
they
Tampa,
got rid of those now. But
who wants to get on 275 at that time of day?
Yeah, and that's part
it's
of
terrible.
It really is a problem. I mean, you've got some options. I mean, right now you have 2 options. You can take 275 or you can take the Gandy across. So you've got 2 options to get across the bay. And then once you're across the bay, it depends which way you go. It can be anywhere from 10 to another 30 minutes along that times. But if you leave here, if you're an Orlando person, you want to go to a 7:10 first pitch during the week, you better get on the road by 4 o'clock at the latest. Otherwise, you're not going to make it. And that's a lot. I mean, that's only from UCF. It's 123 miles from my driveway to their parking lot. That's it. That's 124 miles. But if it's taking you 190 minutes to get there, that speaks to the problem.
Exactly. That's my biggest problem with them. That'd be a lot
more
more
I'm making
games.
that trip Wednesday afternoon, baby. 12:30 at the Trop. I'll be there. It's a nice trip. I point out, here it is. Oakland, 19,000 and change. Mm-hmm. Kansas City, 19,000 and change. Cleveland, which has a very good ballpark and has a very good, exciting team. 19,800. Toronto, 20,000 ball. It's not like the Rays are that far away from the rest of baseball. It's only a 1,000 here and there. And yet where's the story on those teams? Washington, isn't that a bigger story? Baseball failing again in D.C. for what, the 1 millionth time they've had baseball there? Mm-hmm. I mean, I've been to Nats Park. It's a very nice ballpark. It's in downtown, and yet they're only drawing 22,000. it's not like the Rays. It's not like that big of a gap.
Right. I mean, the other thing is, when you look at things, I mentioned this to somebody earlier this week. Let's look at 1986. This is when the Red Sox were competing, and they actually won the American League East. In 1986, the Red Sox had 15 games below 20,000 fans before the July 4th. So July 4th to the start of the season, 15 games where an attendance was under 20,000. That is an 85-year-old franchise with a three-generation fan base, and they could only draw 15, 16,000 a game, including the same night that Roger Clemens struck out 20 for the first time. There were only 13,000 fans at that game. So you're going to crack on an attendance that's still a first-generational fan base here in Tampa Bay. It's just one generation. You look at 4 of every 10 people are from somewhere else in that market, so it's a unique market. And same thing with South Florida. That's just the way it is. Everybody's from somewhere else. You're bringing other allegiances. It takes time to build that. Things are getting better, but at the same time, it's a unique market, and some factors are getting ignored. There's a big local factor that tends to get overlooked.
And I think the attendance is going to increase. I think maybe more casual fans, saw Carl Crawford leave, saw Carlos Pena leave, things like that. And they kind of played wait and see a little bit. And now that they see the Rays still have an excellent team, they're 9 games over 500. They're still a contender in the division. You're going to see the Yankees, the Red Sox come, the Reds, the Cardinals. More people are going to go to the games.
I mean, I say this a lot, and I know it doesn't sit well with people. But for the Rays fan base to mature, they have to be more, supportive of the name in front of the jersey rather than the ones on the back. Carl Crawford leaves, Pena leaves, and all of a sudden the interest is down. Who cares? It's still your Tampa Bay Rays. Yep. If you want to be in it, you've got it. It's the team on the front. The names are always going to change on the back. It doesn't change on the front unless they do a uniform change again. But that's what you got to. There's been a few. But the Cardinals and Reds are coming to town this week. The Reds trained forever in the area in Plant City. Had a minor league team over in Tampa. The Cardinals traded Al Lang Field for a long time. So there's some interest there. Very curious to see what the attendance is going to be like this week with those two series.
And 2 points that people don't bring up when talking about Rays interest. Number one, television ratings are great. FSN and Sun Sports are fantastic. Last year, they were top 5 in Major League Baseball for local ratings.
Radio was top 8.
Ratings top 8. I haven't gotten the this year's number, but they're doing very well, and that's going to help Sun Sports and FSN get a bigger deal. And number 2, by the way, Sunshine State. It's a pretty nice weather. There's a lot of things to do. You want to go to the beach? Want to go hang out? There's a lot of options to do. So there's a lot of different markets. So, it is a tiring act. It's kind of annoying that all the ESPNs seem to be and people feel that's anti-Rays, and it's annoying.
I mean, where are the stories about James Shields? The guy's throwing complete games every time out, having an unbelievable season. No stories on James Shields. Let's jump on the attendance. Kyle Farnsworth having a great all-star-like closing season, but let's talk about the attendance. That's where it really irks fans.
B.J. Upton has 20 steals.
He's one of 3 guys with 10 home runs and 20 steals. He, Drew Stubbs, and Matt Kemp, and that kind of goes under the radar.
We're all just waiting for Kyle Farnsworth to tackle someone.
Absolutely.
I'd love to see that.
We're going to take our final break. When we come back,